Hi, everybody. This is Marten Andersson from Steelheart, Lynch Mob, Lizzy Borden. You are watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, everyone. Jon Liebman here. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com, the number one site for learning bass online. We have a very special guest this week, all the way from Sweden. Well, he's not in Sweden now, but he's originally from Sweden. Marten Andersson. How are you, Marten?
What's up, my brother? Long time coming, man. I'm finally happy to be on board here and hang with you for a little bit.
Oh, so happy to have you. Finally, I know we went back and forth trying to line it up with your busy schedule and everything else going on. But, Steelheart, Lizzy Borden, George Lynch, Lynch Mob, a whole bunch of stuff that we can get to. We'll get to some of it anyway. But you are, as I mentioned, you're originally from Sweden.
You are correct, sir. I've been came over when I was 18 from Sweden. And, I was only supposed to go to Musicians Institute for about a year. And then I got the gig with Lizzy Borden back in the day. It was my first gig. And here I am, 30 years later?
Not a bad first gig. Well, so growing up in Sweden, what kind of music were you listening to? How would you describe your musical upbringing and what attracted you to the bass? How'd you become a bass player?
I think, it's just similar to you. Probably you go through phases in your life, you discover something else. But your British heavy metal is very big in Sweden or Europe. Iron Maiden, Priest, Saxon, all this stuff. So I sort of went through the 80s of doing that, and Steve Harris kind of stuff, and also Chris Glenn, which played with the Michael Schenker group and Alex Harvey band and all those guys. And he was a great influence of mine. And then of course I ran into the Mike Varney Shrapnel sort of shredding, and of course Yngwie came out at that same time, being Swedish. So he was huge in Sweden too, of course. And so I got into that, and so it's different for Jeff Berlin type guys got into that. Of course, the Billy Billy Sheehan type stuff. So it's all through phases, but
isn't Bjorn Englund from Sweden?
Bjorn, that guy. Yeah, we're good buddies. Yeah, we have a little friendly competition going on, but we're very good friends, and we hang out and have coffees and bullshit. And,
Jonas Hellborg, isn't he from Sweden?
Jonas, yeah, what a guy, man! What a guy! Such a, in some ways, kind of underrated in many ways, but not in the bass circles. But kind of stays there. But what a great guy! Yeah, he's a great guy, and what a player.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you were 18 when you came over to the U.S., but you had done a lot of stuff in Sweden before you came here. So you came to the U.S. to go to the Musicians Institute. You didn't have anything else lined up. That was the intent, and you were going to go to school. And what did you see yourself doing after school? Were you going to go back to Sweden, or just
I was going to go back? Yeah, I really didn't have any plans, and at that age, you're just kind of going, I got nothing holding me back here, so I'm just gonna go. And I went, and I had a blast, and I fell in love with America, and I've been here for 30 years now. So it's and I got the Lizzy Borden gig, which we talked to off camera a little bit briefly, but 2 weeks later I was on tour all over Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And
you finished the program though? You graduated from the school?
Yeah, I did. But it's funny because people go, oh, you can read, you can sight read and all this stuff, and I'm going, it's been so long and I didn't keep it up. And it's kind of like the DMV. You do the study for the test and you do it, and then as soon as you walk out of the DMV, you forgot it, right? And it's very similar to that. I don't know, you're such a trained, amazing bass player yourself, but it's hard to keep up if you don't sight read all the time.
Yeah, and what helps with reading is writing, because I've written an awful lot of music. But boy, you bring up a funny point. So how many yards from your car does the flashing light have to be when you have to put up the hood and put the rag on the left side of your car, the right side?
if three cars merges into one lane and one is driving at 20 miles an hour and the other one at 40, which you know what I'm talking about. But I often talk about that in my classical to rock in my seminars that I do, that how important music is for the upbringing of kids and how it helps math. And I mean, there's so many studies that have shown how, you know, music is so beneficial in all areas. So it's
well, that was one of my questions coming up. Why don't we just jump to that right now? What is from classical to rock? Tell us about that.
Well, it started with that we heard that they had cut fundings to some music programs and things like that. And I'm good friends with Jon and at the time Stan Sharp, may rest in peace, but they're two very famous classical musicians. And we're good friends, and we always said we should need to work together and this and this and this. And these guys are, you know, we're talking like Jon, she's what, 5,000 soundtracks, Harry Potter soundtracks. I mean, John Williams, she worked with everybody, right? Yeah. And we always said we need to work on something together. And then we heard that there were some schools that they had cut funding for it. So we're like, we need to put something together, like just call it like from classical to rock. And we're like, hey, wait a minute here, you know. And so we made some calls, and you know, we got Robert DeLeo, amazing bass player.
Yeah, I know Robert. Yeah. And we got him on board, and Chester Bennington, and we put together this little concert, and we made $50,000 for the school. For the schools, and we're like, hey, did they name a building after you?
I'm still waiting for that. I'm waiting for when I go back to Sweden to get the key to the city. I still haven't got that either, but you know.
But you know, you remind me. I was at an Ozzy Osbourne concert a few years back, and you know, I was there ahead of time, and I was hanging out during the sound check, and we're talking with who was Blasco.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Great bass player. Yeah.
Yeah. But the reason I bring that up is because, you know, Rick Wakeman's son, Oliver, right?
I don't know him, but yeah.
Oh, he just did something. This wasn't for the bigger. This was just during the sound check. So there are a handful of people in the house, and he was doing these, I guess they were pop tunes or rock tunes, but he classicaled them up. And he's very talented. So you made me think of that when you're talking about from classical to rock. Yeah, Oliver Wakeman, check him out.
Yeah, I will definitely check it out. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're kind of a little bit different, you know, than the Transperian Orchestra, and we're just a rock band going up playing classical tune. That's sort of how it started, but we started creating our own music and things like that. So that's kind of, and then we had actually a whole thing lined up for China, and of course the nasty plague happened, and then of course we had to cancel all that. But so it's a little bit different where we're creating original music and things like that, and not just going up there playing Led Zeppelin with a choir or orchestra, you know. And what we do is we get student orchestras too. So we're bringing in the kids, which brings in the parents, and you know, the kids are, a lot of these kids maybe never have the opportunity to do something like this, so they're so stoked and happy to do that. Or even like the regular, if you become a classical musician, most of them don't play with rock bands and things like that. So it is a great opportunity for everybody, and it's really a win-win. And you know, we've done what, 3 or 4 concerts now with Nancy Wilson and Johnny Resnick from Goo Goo Dolls, and you know, another great bass player, Randy Jackson. He was part of one. He was you know, master of ceremony for one of them, and it was funny too because you're up there doing. We did actually a couple of Journey songs, and I'm up there, you know, going. And there's Randy standing right there the whole time, and you're going, "Oh God, shoot!" You know?
That's funny. Funny you should mention Journey. I just interviewed Marco Mendoza the other day.
Love Marco. Yeah,
and he was doing a Journey gig for a while, filling in for Randy.
I'm surprised that he did not get that gig for some reason, but you know, just
watch the interview. He tells the whole story. I'd like to back up a little bit, though, because you were talking about sight reading and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit more about growing up in Sweden and how you learned about music. And did you go through school programs? How did you learn to sight read? Was bass your first instrument? Fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah, right now. I actually started with guitar. And then I remember seeing, and I've talked about this in the past, I saw something with Gene Simmons. And I saw him going up there, and he's spitting blood, and he just looked like a, you know, the total rock star. And I was like, I want to be like that, you know. So, and because of Gene, actually, I changed to bass, It's one, you know, when you're a 12, 13-year-old kid, you're going, I don't care. That looks like a cool instrument, you know. So I actually switched to bass at that point from guitar. But the cool thing with Sweden is what we work in here with the classical to rock too, is that we try to work on after school programs. We set up summer programs and things like that, because Sweden has a lot of after school programs, and most of them are free. And that's one of the beneficial things I think came out of Sweden for me, is that I was able to attend all these different things and sort of learn through that. And there's 2 rehearsal studios in my school. So after I was done with school, I would just go downstairs and go down in the basement, and there was 2 studios there that you can rehearse that the you know, the city paid for or whatever. So you know, we all know how many Michael Jordans there might be out there, but they never get the chance for whatever funding reasons, or, you know, they get into crime or whatever it may be, right? So I'm a big advocate of responsible, you know, after school programs that are reasonable priced, you know.
Did you go through any kind of formal training music wise?
You know, I took lessons, and, you know, there's, you know, and then before I went to Musicians Institute, I took lessons from a guy over there, and I can't remember the guy's name, but so he kind of got me prepared for the Musicians Institute as far as sight reading and things like that. And one of my first bass teachers actually was a guy named Marcel Jacobs. And I don't know if you know who he is, but he had a band named Talisman with Jeff Scott Soto. And he also played with Yngwie for many years during the heyday. He was, you know, in the first Yngwie album, the Marching Out album, he was Yngwie's band. And then he came back to Sweden, and he started playing with John Norum from the band Europe at the time. This might be like way over your head right now, and so he was a very established guy, meaning played with Yngwie and, you know, played with Europe and played with all those bands, right? So that was one of my teachers. And I think he's the guy that sort of introduced me to some of the shredding stuff as far as the arpeggio, you know, doing all the classical stuff, you know. It's just
it's funny. Audio on your bass is going. I think you're pushing the Zoom thing a little too hard. So my son is about to graduate from Berkeley in Boston.
Oh, wow.
He's a guitar player. But he's been so into it since he was, you know, tiny, you know, a young boy. He came up to me when he was about 8 or 9 years old, and he said, "Dad, have you ever heard of Yngwie Malmsteen?" I said, "Oh no."
Yeah.
So he was into the shredding for a while, and then he went to the opposite direction. He got into like John Mayer and pop stuff, and then he got into George Benson and jazz, and he's writing, producing, arranging. He keeps me on my toes with music theory and all that.
You must be a proud dad as far as that stuff, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you also tell him it's a horrible industry to get into?
No, I did not.
You didn't warn him about that part?
You know what? He's going to be just fine.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
So, all right. So tell me, what's keeping you busy these days?
Well, right now I've been busy with the last couple of years with the Steelheart stuff. And we just released, it's a new Steelheart song. It's called Trust and Love. And Millie's singing it in, I think we're up to 9 languages right now. And it's being released in every country.
Wow.
in a different language. So, and we've been
cool.
Sort of playing out on that and things like that. And we're also working on a new From Classical to Rock concert, hopefully in August of this year, I'm hoping, pending everything that's going on in the world and yada, 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 you know. But so that's been keeping me busy. And it's just Yutan and I, the violinist, famous Chinese violinist, but she's here, she's in LA. But so it's just us sort of working. So we don't have a staff or anything. So it's just us working our butts off doing it. But you know, it's a lot of fun. So I don't mind doing the work. But you know how it goes. It's so much time in the day, right?
Yep.
So, so yeah, the Steelheart stuff is cool, and we're out gigging. So check out the websites for tour dates and stuff like that. And whenever it comes by, I do the film stuff, do some scoring for, you know, ESPN, you know, and hockey highlights. And we did a phone commercial, music for that and stuff like that. So
you were in the booth at a hockey game not too long ago, weren't you?
You're correct. Yeah. I got the opportunity to sit in, and I was only supposed to do the interview between the second and third. The announcer is a big Steelheart fan, and he goes, come on, do an interview with me. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. So, and I actually had sat in on the whole third period and did play-by-play and everything.
Wow.
So it was, being a big hockey guy like me, it's just a ton of fun. So it was great. Yeah.
Tell me about your basses and your gear and strings and amps and effects and stuff. I don't know if we have time to go through all of them.
No. I'll give you a quick rundown. Most of my basses are 4. I use some 8s. I use EMG pickups. I use the Geezer Butler ones for the most part. In my main bass, which it's not in here right now, but that I use, it's the prototypes that they tried out for Geezer that they worked on. So they sent them to me, and it sounds, I know you can't hear it, but I totally got that Geezer sound to it, mixed in with my little paws, and it's just, and it's really, really cool. I used the full contact hardware bridges, which I think are amazing too. And Bjorn and all those guys, I got them all, Joe Rivera and all those guys, they're all using these now because they're like, holy crap, these are so cool. So I use that. I use, a lot of people ask me if I use 5 strings, and I do have some 5 strings, but a lot of times I just use the detuner.
Hipshot.
The Hipshot detuner, and it sort of works for me. In conjunction with the EBS pedals, I used
it always comes back to the Sweden connection.
I don't know. They seek you out for some reason, something to do with energy. But
do you know Ralph Butterbo?
Oh, of course, yeah. He's my artist rep there. So I use the Billy Sheehan pedal for my distortion part, and their compression as well. And that's pretty much it. I keep it fairly simple, but what I do is I have 2 stacks of usually Ampegs, and I keep one clean, just straight in, and then I do one with the distortion, and then I have the sound guy sort of mix that. And it's just a simplified version of, how Billy Sheehan, he has like freaking 2 outputs, and it goes to 2 different amps. And when I remember when he was at Steve Vai, he had like 3 different. It was mid-range, low end, and high end, and I was like,
well, one for each finger that he uses.
Yeah, he does that.
I know.
He's perfect at that. But but if you don't have your own sound guy, man, if you start mixing, you have a high end, and you're doing a fly in, you're just throwing go or whatever. So I try to make it fairly simple as far as what the gear is, but I do use the clean tone, and then I use some compression and the EBS pedal for my other stuff.
You mentioned all the parts on your bass. I don't think you mentioned you're an ESP guy, right?
I am an ESP guy. Yeah, I have I don't know if you can see it, but it's some cool. This is my own prototype 8-string.
So 8-string would be like a 12-string guitar, 2.
Yeah. I'm a big Tom Peterson, Doug.
I was just gonna say Tom Peterson. Yeah.
Right. So
I played that bass. I have a picture where I'm interviewing him, and we're talking about it, and he says, "You want to try it?" I said, "Yeah."
Of course I want to try. Yeah, right. I just saw him recently. We just played with him in Florida, actually, Steelheart. And I was like, man, so just a big fan. So, but the whole 12-string thing, especially if you don't have a tech and you're doing flying stuff and everything, the huge difference between 12 and 8 is not that much. So I just went with an 8-string. So that's sort of the prototype. And right now we're working on another ESP one. I like just doing weird stuff. Like I do my little fret scallop. I don't know if you could see that on here, but just really, so you can do some of the bending stuff for the.
Are they all scalloped, or just the ones in the upper range?
12 and
upper registered.
Yeah, just slightly, just small. Little things you can do for fun. So I like just to make it a little bit different. But that's basically the setup. It's pretty plain and standard. Trying to think of what else. The Dario strings I use. I've been a long time user for those, and depending on the tuning, I use some different sizes of strings, obviously. But trying to think of what else. It's funny, and this being an amazing bass player that you are, but it's so much in your fingers. It really is. I mean, speaking of Yngwie, I saw him in a music store one time in Stockholm. and he's in the store, and he just takes the guitar down, plugs it into a little twin reverb, and it sounded exactly like him,
Right.
You know, just it was like 20 Marshalls right there, it just,
I
his
know
sound
exactly
right
what you mean. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The sound is in the hands.
Same
So
thing with Billy. I've done jams with him where he just goes in, he doesn't have all his, his
right.
setup is, he's got all kinds of stuff, 40 of these and compression and this and splitting this, and he plugs straight into an Ampeg or whatever, and he just sounds like Billy still,
I know. We were fooling around in Germany one time, just the two of us for like
that sounds personal.
Oh, it's on video. You can watch it. Just like an hour and a half. It was at one of the Warwick base camps. And he came to me like Friday night. He says, hey, you want to get together tomorrow? I'll show you some stuff on the bass.
Oh.
I said, I don't know. I'll have to check my schedule. No, it was, but just to your point, I mean, it was just a little tiny, like a practice amp or something, but he sounded like Billy. And he showed me some really cool stuff. And I have to admit, I said, the technique and doing this, it's all really cool, Billy, but show me something that looks good,
I got those chords that I use at my seminars. It's like, stuff like that. Everybody going, oh my God, you have absolutely no use for it, right?
I want to talk to you about playing bass and learning bass. I mean, we've got a ton of interviews on ForBassPlayersOnly.com, and I always try to work something in when I talk to people like you with all this knowledge and all this bass experience. We have more and more people coming to ForBassPlayersOnly.com every day to learn how to play bass. We've got lessons here that people come to, and most of the people that I attract tend to be men in their 50s, 60s, 70s. It's not who I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be the kids, like the Musicians Institute kids. Right. And we got a fair bit of women too, but mostly men, and they're not career oriented. They're not trying to set the world on fire. They're not trying to be rock stars. They want to play some of the great music from the 60s and 70s. I just launched a new soul bass course, by the way.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Really getting a strong response. But so they want to play some classic rock riffs and some blues shuffles and get together with their friends or just learn on their own. So I mentioned that just to give you some context. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you think is important for somebody who wants to learn how to play bass? What is important for them to know?
Well, I think the foundation, obviously, of some music theory is a good start. But it's funny because we can go back to a guy like Billy Sheehan. When they were in David Lee Roth together, you got Steve Vai on one side that is the most incredible, musical genius when it comes to theory and everything. And then you got a guy like Billy Sheehan who goes, I have no freaking clue what I'm playing, but it sounds good, right? He has no freaking clue. I mean, he might know a C major scale or something, but on a level of really what he's doing, he has not knowledge. So my suggestion is, which I think I'd made a mistake in some ways, I try to make the scales perfect. I try to get these play as fast as possible and do all this Billy Sheehan stuff and everything. But I missed out at that point a little bit about the basic about songwriting. I mean, it's like that Nashville saying, there's no money to be made over the 12th fret, right? And have the theory in mind, but, if they tell you, you got to sit straight and you got to have your guitar in a lap, and I forget the guy's name, Tommy, what was the guy, Tommy, that wrote all the, the House on the Prairie theme and all those, the 70s guy, big guy, Tommy something, guitar player. And he's a big guy, a big gut. And I saw a seminar with him when I was like 16 or 17. And he goes, they tell me that you should have your guitar in a lap. And this thing goes, I have not had a lap in 30 years.
Tommy Tedesco?
Tommy Tedesco, yes. I was at that. He was 18. I was at his seminar at Musicians Institute. And that's when he said that. And I go, all right. So if they say you're supposed to put your thumb like this, it's all right to put it like this, It's like, all right, so if it works for you, then go with it is what I'm trying to say. But instead of just trying to.
I know. I've seen videos of Louis Johnson.
Yeah.
So now take your left thumb and put it over the top of the neck. Right. I mean, people would consider that borderline criminal.
Right. You know, this was borderline criminal for some people, you know, for playing bass, but you know, it worked for Paul McCartney, like you said. So, you know, who are we to say that it doesn't work, you know? Yeah. So, and I use both. I use both my fingers, and we just recorded some Steelheart stuff for the 30th anniversary, and there was no pick involved in any of it. It was just fingers. So.
About to ask you if you ever use your fingers, because I haven't seen you use them too many times.
It happens, yeah. So
you do a lot of tapping, and I'm saying, where does the pick go? Oh, he puts it in his mouth.
I do put it in my mouth, or I just toss it out, and I have a crap load on my mic stand, and I just grab another one. But no, there is definitely a lot. Sometimes it's just for the fun of it. Like I played the last Steelheart show. I think I played about half of it, which is my fingers, just to keep them up and running, you know. So, well, but I'm never gonna get the Billy, you know, three finger speed, nor do I even want to touch that.
When you have two fingers, okay, it's either this one or this one, so you alternate. But when you throw in a third one, I don't know. I guess
I've seen it do like Slayer stuff and in the jam sessions and things, and there's no pick involved. He's doing three fingers doing Slayer stuff, and I'm going, all right.
Well, wouldn't some of the music call for you to use a pick?
Yes and no. I mean, there's, you know, I kind of just do my own. Same thing when I played with Lynch. I sort of, you know, I stuck to the basic of what Jeff Pilson used to play, but Jeff Pilson was also a pick guy. So with the dock and stuff. And so, you know, I kind of made my own version of things a little bit. George was pretty cool about that. He's like, just do your own version. It sounds better, you know? So, you know, it's just,
Jeff Pilson, he made me laugh. I'm interviewing him. We're on the Foreigner tour bus right in the parking lot of the venue. You ever play Pine Knob in Michigan?
I think I might have, yeah.
Yeah, well, they finally call it Pine Knob again. They were calling it something else for like...
Yeah, what's it called? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
DTE Energy Theater or something.
Okay,
like
right.
Yeah. But before that, in the 70s, Pine Knob.
Okay.
So I don't know why I said this. I just started off the interview. I said, no, you've been... ensconced in the rock bass milieu, and he says, "Whoa, two big words!" Oh, I said, "I don't talk like that. I don't know why those words came out of my mouth." It was hilarious.
That's pretty funny, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
It's funny because bass players are such a cool people. They really are. There's no like competition, really, like guitar players. You know, changing a light bulb. How many light bulbs does it take to change that? Guitar players, 1 in 10 that says they can do it better, right? Yeah. It's not like that for bass players. We're all cool. Like I know Bjorn, I know Mendoza, and I'm not name dropping. I'm just saying we're all cool people. You know, it
takes 5 bass players to change a light bulb. One to actually change the bulb, and 4 to figure out how Jocko did it.
Yeah.
I'm so I got to know him in Florida in the 80s.
Did you really?
That's when I was there and he was there. So I was actually at his house and we would jam, and he's showing me fingerings to Teen Town. And, you know, I said, "Oh, I thought it was this way." He says, "No, this is how you do it." And then it was surreal. We're talking about Weather Report. He's showing charts with Joe Zawinul's original handwritten manuscript. And the last time I was there was like a month before he died.
Oh, wow.
It was. I saw him that night. The accident happened. I was at the Santana concert, and Alfonso Johnson was playing a solo, and I'm with my buddy, and I see some guy just jumped up on the stage, and he goes over Alfonso's head like this. You can't see in the camera, as if to say to the audience, "Hey, give it up for Alfonso." And I could see the security guys dragging him away, and I said, "That's Jocko. Oh my God, that's Jocko." Yeah. And that's when, you know, the rest of the story.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I've asked Alfonso about it. I've talked to him, and he says, "Yeah, you know, Carlos talks about it, and sometimes not very much." But he said, "Yeah, Jocko hung out with us all day, and we're all having such a great time." And
what a sad story. Yeah. I mean, what do you think of the movie? You think he made it justice?
Trujillo, Robert Trujillo. Yeah, I thought it was great. What's not
I thought so too.
All those people, and
yeah.
So, what about the future? What else do you have coming up?
Well, I'm still tossing around, and I got about 4 or 5 songs written to do some sort of bass record. Finally, it's more for my own ego than anything else to say that I've done it. And I'm still tossing around the idea, and just you know, like I said, I'm about 4 or 5 songs into it, and I just asked a bunch of different cool players, like, hey, throw something on here. So I'm like, hey, Lynch, throw something on here, you know, just and so that it's still something that I'm thinking about doing.
It's not going to happen unless you make it happen. And the reason I say that is because I've interviewed over 800 bass players, and I can't tell you how many of them have said to me, you know, I've been developed. I've got enough of my own material. I have something to say. I want to put out my own album. And then they all say, but it's not going to be one of those bass records. I hate bass records. So,
I'll do some shredding on there, but there would definitely be some singing. The most of the stuff is singing stuff where I show off my quote unquote writing capabilities, I think. So, you know, yeah, there's so many great bass records, and you know, the Jeff Berlin stuff and all the stuff. It's just incredible. But and even Billy's stuff is amazing too. But so that's something that I'm keeping on the back burner. So just you know, I'd like to do it, but I haven't got there yet.
I'll tell you what, we'll right now, I will extend an invitation to you for a follow-up interview, to be determined when. I was going to say a year, but that might be too long. And I want to talk about your just released solo record.
All right. You got a challenge. Jesus, pressure is on, huh?
How's that for incentive?
It is. The pressure is on. Yeah.
All
wow.
right.
I better call Ralph's and get a couple more of these. Maybe it'll make me play better.
And anybody watching this on YouTube, put in the comments underneath. Come on, Martin. Come on. You can do it.
Right.
On. We're all waiting. We're all waiting. I do have one more question for you.
Shoot, brother. Shoot.
What would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
Wow. I got that question a lot. And, you know, I probably would be something, a teacher of some sort, most likely. And, but it's hard to tell because I've done this since I was 12. And I just saw a video today with Graham Bonnet, the great Graham Bonnet, who sang with Rainbow and Michael Schenker and all this stuff, right? And he's 74 years old and he's still doing his video singing, and he sang great in this video. And I'm going, can I still do that when I'm 74? Is that going to give me the same pleasure at that point? I don't know. That's a good question. What would you be doing? Let me shoot that back to you.
You know, my interests have always been in music and in business.
Yeah.
And in high school, I took business law and I played in the jazz band. Through college, I majored in music and I took all the business courses. In graduate school, I was in the jazz program at University of Miami, and I was also in the graduate school of business, accounting, marketing, management, statistics, finance, economics, all that stuff. So business really excites me. I ran a business for many years. I like to look at a balance sheet and an income statement.
Hopefully it's plus sign, right?
Yeah. Talk to the lawyers, the bankers, the accountants, call me crazy, but I like that stuff. And I could see getting excited about in any kind of business.
Yeah. So very similar to me. I have a marketing background too, but I'm a part owner of a production company here in LA. So we do everything from logo design to website design to music to that's when we pull all our music for productions through. So, it's also part of that, being part owner of that business. And that's probably something similar that I would continue. I always saw myself running a record label when I was younger, but obviously we all know that it's not a
yeah. I used to think about that a lot, actually.
Yeah. See, that would be cool, right? It would be awesome to run a record label, but
it would. And there's some newer concept types of record labels, but I don't know. I could just try to see myself as an A&R guy, and I'm like, no, you're kidding, right?
Right. And then the next week they're the biggest hit ever, and you go, shoot, was I wrong about this thing or what?
Well, how many companies turned down the Beatles, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, there's so many of those stories, Wonder if that guy end up working at McDonald's or something after that. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, Martin, this has been great. I've been looking forward to having this conversation for such a long time. I'm so glad we finally got to do it. And I encourage you and I implore you, maybe that's too strong of a word, but get the record done. And
I
I'm
might
sure
do.
it'll get a strong response. So much luck and continued success to you. And I look forward to meeting you in person. We've never even met in person.
Yeah. Where are you located now? I forget.
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure being on, man. I can't wait we'll have to get this pressures on now, get this record done and come back on. And like I said, you're a legend in your own right. And, everything you do online and stuff is awesome. So definitely kudos back to you, brother. So
thank you so much. And it'll be my pleasure to pressure you to do the album with our very special guest, Marten Andersson. I'm Jon Liebman. You're watching the #1 site for learning bass online, ForBassPlayersOnly.com. Thank you, Marten.
peace out, brothers.